Welcome on back to a new edition, a new year of the Dub and Harmon Show. I'm Dalton Wicks alongside
Eric Harmon here. It's been a long time coming, but today on the Dub and Harmon Show, got an NFL wildcard recap with a divisional round preview, NBA New Year update, and of course your Warriors and your Sharks. And Dalton, I gotta say congratulations.
Congrats on what?
We beat Reggie Bush in rushing yards this season in the NFL. We are officially better than Reggie Bush was.
Wow.
Yeah, -4 for him. -4 for him on the season.
We should both be honored.
Yeah.
We should get contracts, man.
I know. If we can beat NFL running backs, I mean, really at this point.
Dude, I'm down. I am down. I'll
take a $500K minimum.
Just give me a
contract.
Good quarterback to offset my ugliness out there, and we'll be fine.
I want the ball.
I want Drew Brees. Drew Brees, another 5,000 yard. Was it 5,000 yards passing?
I want Brock Osweiler out there, so they have to give me the ball.
Yeah, it's been a while. Eric and I have been through those sick days of the winter time, just trading off, being a little ill here and there. But we're fine. We're back.
I'm still a little sick. I'm good enough though to do the podcast now. It's been
Yeah.
We're here. Let's do this.
Yeah. Alrighty, so let's get on into it. We're going to be talking about a little bit of pigskin to kick off.
Man, first weekend of the playoffs kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Kind of was very, very boring. Like, I couldn't get wrapped around any of the games because they all seemed to be blown out pretty darn quickly. They're fun to watch. Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
The Seattle Seahawks wide receivers, and some of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their big three. It's half the time, even though Big Ben might be a little hurt now because they decided to keep him in.
Yeah, that could be costly against a very hot Kansas City team next week. But yeah, you mentioned it. Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron.
The man, the myth, the legend. His greatness continues to grow. I mean, you look at this winning streak that Green Bay Packers have been on, 7 games now extending into the playoffs. And during that time, he's just a tad under 70% completion percentage, 19 touchdowns, no picks, averaging 290 yards per game and a 121.5 average quarterback rating.
I feel a little bad for the Giants in this game because they played that first half defensively as up until those last minute and a half as about as well as they could. They kept the Packers to 7 points. It was a 6-7 game. And then Aaron Rodgers drives down the field and has that 50-yard Hail Mary pass for a touchdown at the end of the first half. And it was just like, oh, well, that basically unwound everything they did. And it was the Packers' game from that point on. He called the shot, basically. He said, we're going to run the table. And they did it.
He did. He's one of the few guys who can get away with doing something just like that. He has all the talent in the world, and all he needs is just his teammates to step up around him. The defense needs to click. If the defense just plays even average, I think, and holds their ground, and he gets some weapons around him to play right, then they can win any game, I think.
You also saw Jordy Nelson go down in that game as well, so
that was a huge blow. That was a very, very
broken
huge
ribs.
blow. And not only him, but Ty Montgomery also went down too.
It's going to be interesting to see. They're going up against the Dallas Cowboys with all these injuries. Aaron Rodgers is the best QB in the NFL for a reason, so he can do this, but it's going to be a big task for the Packers.
Yeah, for sure. So you got Packers-Cowboys, Seahawks-Falcons is the other NFC matchup, and then Texans-Patriots and Steelers-Chiefs. Before we go into those previews, just want to round out Wild Card Weekend by saying not the smartest move probably to take a boat trip now that we look back on this weekend.
Yeah, I mean,
not mentioning any names.
I don't think that actually had any but it gave so much fodder to the media, getting caught doing it. Because I mean,
no, I'm not going to say there's a direct correlation. I'm just poking a little fun at it. I think it's a funny story.
Elsewhere across the league, I mean, Raiders got screwed over by not having their first string QB or their left tackle.
Big time
cost them so much. Donald Penn got hurt at such a critical moment for them, and the one sack he gives up all season ends up being critical as well. It's just completely unlucky for them because they looked so good after week 15. They looked healthy as hell and able to play. Seahawks beat the Lions. I mean, we all could have. I mean, no surprise there. I don't think anyone thought the Lions were going to take that one. And then Steelers, of course, taking the Dolphins without Ryan Tannehill. All the favorites won. I mean, there's not much to say about this weekend other than it was what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, for sure. I don't feel bad for the Dolphins at all, considering they employ one of the dirtiest players in the NFL, and in Ndamukong Suh. I loved that Week 17 when the Patriots just dismantled the Dolphins, and LeGarrette Blount and company just sent a message. And Blount was even being interviewed after the game. It was just wasn't mincing any words, saying Suh is just one of the biggest trash talkers, makes every dirty play possible with the whole history of him stepping on people after plays and shoving people. He's not good for the league. I don't think.
Speaking of dirty plays, this is kind of a crossing over here, but that college football, that Clemson team, did you hear about those dirty plays?
Yeah. So you had Clemson and Alabama in the national championship game, and hopefully before the game, everybody was hoping that Alabama would finally be dethroned and we have some sort of change of pace, and looks like we got it.
Yeah, thankfully. I mean, I don't watch a lot of their college football, but all I've known for the past 10 years is that it's Alabama football and no one else really. So.
I thought they should just change the name of the sport to Chasing Alabama.
Chasing cars.
I was really thinking that's a possibility if Saban won again, but Clemson finally changes the pace here at the top.
Yeah, I mean,
whether they did it the right way, I guess, can be questioned.
They did it their way, so
they did it bad boy Detroit Pistons style, did they?
That. Fingers up. Woo! So, I just want to quickly laugh about that real fast. That was it basically for the wild card weekend for me. Nothing else really stuck out.
Yeah, so on to the divisional round. We'll look at this game by game just briefly. So, first up, if we're going to go in chronological order, I believe Seahawks-Falcons are going to be on Saturday. So, Seattle is going to be at Atlanta. Interesting here because the former Seahawks defensive coordinator, Quinn, is now the head coach over at Atlanta, so he's got some inside scoop possibly to how Seattle runs things. Atlanta's got home field. Matty Ice is looking like an MVP candidate. What are your thoughts?
Seattle doesn't have their big defensive back, Earl Thomas, I think it is.
Safety.
He's out. I mean,
pro safety.
Yeah. And they've been one of the worst defensive passing units in the league since he's been hurt. Atlanta, they're going to attack with that full-fledged passing offense. I actually think this is going to be a good matchup. Atlanta is probably the best that they've looked with this current squad of guys. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Trent Coleman. I mean, they're now a full an offense that's really looking like they're in tune. So I think, and at home against Seattle, I think they could take it. But Seattle's got all that playoff experience. And Russell Wilson, who's something like 11-4, and it's only his 5th season.
He's got a ton of experience, and he's not even that old.
Something ridiculous like that. Yeah. So it'll be a good matchup between Seahawks, their experience and their defense, versus Atlanta's high-powered offense.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. Just to highlight a few matchups that I think are really going to be fun to keep an eye on throughout the game. First is the Atlanta rushing attack versus that Seattle front line. It's to see who gets the upper hand there throughout the game. Also, I don't know how often it's going to happen. I don't know if Sherman's one of those guys that sticks to one side of the field or not, but Julio Jones and Richard Sherman, that's going to be a big time, or Cam Chancellor involved in there too. That's going to be another big time matchup. And then just to see if Thomas Rawls, who was a pretty big breakout star for the Seahawks this past weekend and just of late, and see if he can carry over his magic for the Seahawks offense.
I mean, they're going to need it too because the Seahawks have not had a running game for most of this season.
That's about it for that game, though. We'll see what happens.
Patriots-Houston,
yeah.
Yes. And I mean,
say Texans.
And you don't need to be unbiased in this, or biased in this. I don't really think it matters. Texans, they're not going to go into New England and shut down this New England squad.
See, I'm not at all worried about Brock Osweiler and those guys carving up the New England D. I don't think that's much of an issue. But, I mean, it is the great Tom Brady, who I can't have more confidence in somebody than I do in Tom Brady in winning a playoff game, even though he's up into his upper 30s now. This Texans D, whether it was against Connor Cook and backups and stuff last week against the Raiders, they still looked like they had some stuff to prove. So, Jadeveon Clowney, Brian Cushing, they even have, I forget the guy's name, the rookie defensive back looked like a stud out there. So they've got a lot of really good pieces on defense. That kind of scares me a little bit when all these people are saying, oh, blowout New England, like New England's going to handle it. Not so fast. I'm not going to say total blowout. I'm still picking New England to win, but it could be closer than people are thinking. I think right after the conclusion of the games last week, New England was a 15.5-point favorite. That was a little much for me.
I think it's going to be a 2-score game. That's what I see, because not only do I think that New England's offense is going to be able to Bill Belichick's the best game planning coach in the NFL.
You're goddamn right.
So I don't think that the Houston Texans are good enough on. I mean, they are very good on defense. They only gave up 20 points on the season and about 300 yards allowed per game. I think that's the number one.
Right.
But on the opposite side, the New England Patriots have the best scoring defense in the NFL. They only gave up 15.6 points per game. I mean, the Patriots defense doesn't get as much recognition as other teams do, but they get a lot of scoring from that unit. And Brock Osweiler as a QB is very prone to turning the ball over. So
that's true. That's very true.
I could quickly see it just getting blown out of hand. Osweiler makes a couple mistakes early on, and the game's over before we even.
Yeah, I'm still going to take the Pats no matter what.
Yeah. You're just being humble. You don't want to.
I guess so, yeah. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because I feel like the Texans, if they just get a little bit of help from their D, could make it
I'll get ahead of it for you, all right? I'll get ahead of it for you.
So then we move on to Sunday after those two matchups, and now we've got
Pittsburgh, Kansas City.
Pittsburgh, Kansas City.
That's
is the
a
first
matchup.
One. This is the game of the weekend I'm looking forward to, honestly, because Pittsburgh, their big three-headed monster in Roethlisberger, Bell, and Brown is at full force right now. Bell it was his first playoff game, I believe. He just hasn't been with the team in the playoffs, and now he's there, and boy, did he make a big difference in that game. He ran all over Miami's D. And Antonio Brown had a heck of a first half in that game, just set the tone early on. Roethlisberger, though, going to be something to keep an eye on with his injury.
The injury, yeah. In Kansas City, their offensive unit, I don't think they've ever been more dynamic than the weapons that they have right now. Yeah, just because of Tyreek.
Yeah.
Tyreek, Travis Kelce, like those are the big two weapons that Alex Smith has and uses quite well. That Travis Kelce crossing a route where he just like gets guys tailing him and he just seems to get away from the defender, and Alex Smith can put it right on and lead him perfectly. The Chiefs have the offensive weapons, and now both teams, they both have very good defenses too. So I mean, 20 points allowed for the Steelers, 19 points allowed for the Chiefs on the defensive side.
Wow.
And they both have their offensive weapons. So I think this is going to be the most dynamic, hopefully the most dynamic matchup. And I don't know which way this is going to go. I mean, both teams.
I just want a good game. I just want to see it go down to the wire, especially after this last weekend. Give me something that just goes down to maybe even OT.
Yeah.
That's going to be a great, great game to watch. Finally, we've got the rookie sensation-led Dallas Cowboys, we dem boys, taking on Aaron Rodgers and the Pack.
Yeah.
That's going to be another good game, honestly.
Yeah.
It really is.
The Sunday slate is looking a lot. 3 out of these 4 games, I think, are going to be pretty competitive, including the only one I don't think is going to be is that New England game. So, yeah, Green Bay and Dallas. Aaron Rodgers, who's on a roll to match all rolls, calling all his shots, basically, at this point. He's Babe Ruthing it for football. He rolls into Cowboy land. Cowboys with their high-powered offense. That should be a lot of fun to watch, too. I mean, it
should.
The only questions you're going to have is there have been questions the entire season between Dak being able to consistently get his offensive weapons going in a game. And now that we're here in the playoffs, are we going to see those first year I'm in the playoffs jitters, or are they just going to keep going? Or are they just going to keep being the machine that they've been so far?
Okay, I got a question for you, though.
Yes, shoot.
Dallas goes down maybe by like 10 points, and then it gets into the beginning of the fourth quarter, and Dak's struggling. Do you know what my next question is going to be?
Tony Romo?
Does Tony Romo come in and save the day?
Oh, man.
That's interesting.
See, it's hard to know because we still have no clue what the Cowboys want to do with him after the season is over, because you've heard reports they might want to keep him. You've seen reports they might want to trade him.
I do not see them keep. If they're going to make the official move to Dak, why keep Tony?
Because Tony's still the better QB at this point in their eyes. Jerry Jones does things that just don't seem to make sense sometimes. Yes, over the past 5 years, he has built his team up to be very good. But remember, Jerry Jones has always been a problem in the press in the past, making weird moves, like signing that offensive lineman who had all those domestic violence issues or something like that. He had some
he's
issues.
Definitely not shying away from making those kind of moves.
He said he likes to create controversy for the team to keep the Dallas Cowboys in the news. So, I mean...
But another thing is are you going to make Tony upset if he thinks he wants to go get a starting job on, like, say, the New York Jets or the Denver Denver Broncos would be a
Yeah.
huge place for him to go land in,
There's some
because that's a
very
team
nice,
ready to win
very
now.
nice looking options for Tony Romo. So you
So,
got to think.
I don't think he would be on board with backing up Dak next year.
That's a good point. Well, Jerry can sell it as maybe you won't be backing up Dak. I don't know how realistic that would be at all, or probably not realistic whatsoever. I'm never surprised by moves that Jerry Jones makes.
he really
like, that's
can't be.
just
One of the things we do when we're not practicing, we entertain a lot.
It really can't be.
that's just the point I'm trying to
Like,
make.
just like keep your horizons as open as possible.
Exactly. Like expect the unexpected. We're gonna play them both at the same time. Like what?
One guy's gonna take first and second down, the other third and fourth. I don't know.
Yeah. Now they're gonna try a new offense where they just do backward passes to each other until someone else on the field gets open.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're going to have Ezekiel Elliott, the stud running back, accompanying the Dak attack and that beastly offensive line. And the defense has even been playing pretty significant for most of the season, too. And then you've got just the red-hot Green Bay Packers. But you got some question marks. Is Jordy Nelson going to try? I don't think he is. I think the report was a couple of cracked ribs or fractured ribs for him, and that's just not a good thing for a
He's
receiver.
gonna try and practice on Saturday.
Because running routes and stuff like
yeah.
that and making contact with some of the DBs with something like that, that's going to hurt like heck.
Yeah, I broke a rib in playing, and I remember that was not a lot of fun trying to play with that before.
Yeah.
I will say that the Green Bay Packers are going into this now with something they haven't had in the past 5 years, a rushing attack. Ty Montgomery has been very, very good for that
But then
squad.
again, is he going to play?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is he going to play? He's a question mark too.
Because he's putting at 5.7 yards per attempt this season.
Yeah.
At 457 yards, which is pretty impressive for a running back. That's better than Zeke was doing on the season. He was only 5.1.
I don't know, man. After seeing that Hail Mary throw this past weekend, it's so hard for me to, even with all the injuries, say that Aaron can't do it.
Yeah, he can put the ball wherever he wants to put it.
Because that's what everybody was telling him, that he couldn't do it before they went on that winning streak and ran the table. Is like, you can't do it this year. It's Detroit's division. And you can't do it, but he said...
Well, it was their division until what's his name got hurt, their QB.
Stafford?
Yeah, he hurt his hand. If you look at his stats pre-hand injury and post-hand injury, like you can tell that he was not playing correctly.
Yeah.
But this weekend, really hoping we get some good football games. That's really what I want most of all, just entertaining football, because last week was the pits.
Yeah, you saw all wild card teams just straight up lose, and it wasn't even close. The average margin of the scores was double digits. It was just not pretty to watch. I guess one thing I would also hope for this week is that you see at least one lower-seeded team win. It's a one game, because that would really suck if you just end up with the 1s and 2s in both conferences end up playing each other.
You want to quick pick 4 games, both of us? I'm kind of... wanting to make some picks on
short
this.
little pick segment.
Yeah.
This is not just Wick's picks. This is both of us going at it. I like it.
Seattle, Atlanta. What you thinking?
Man, I never want to pick against Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. That I'm gonna rue the day if I pick Atlanta. But and then again, Matt Ryan's looking the best he's ever been. The Falcons' defense at home. I'm still gonna take Seattle, man. I got Seattle winning this. It's gonna be close. I say by 6.
I'm gonna go Atlanta on that one. I'm gonna go the opposite side. I feel like Atlanta's finally ready to make that push over the hump.
I hope so. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But like, just my conscience, I can't just say like I picked against Wilson and Carroll.
Those Seattle wide receivers last week made like 3 unbelievable catches. That Paul Richardson.
The one controversial first touchdown, he totally yanked the guy's face mask, and that was an awful no call by the referees. It was like blatant, clear as day. Yanked the dude's face, like his neck almost twisted a full 180, and he caught it.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a catch with his other hand, but he was also committing a penalty at the same time. But then he made another one-handed catch later, and he was just kind of... He was OBJ this weekend when OBJ wasn't there.
Baldwin. Yeah, I know, for real. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the butt catch, too.
So much better than the butt fumble.
Better storylines, yeah.
I'm going to hope that Atlanta takes that one. I want to see them move on. Houston, New England. Let's just New England. We both know
New
on that
England,
one.
but I'm going to say by, let's say 7.
I think 2 scores on that one. Pittsburgh and Kansas City.
Pittsburgh, Kansas City. Man, I think no matter what, this is coming down to a field goal. Kansas City's defense, Pittsburgh's big 3 aren't going to run as freely, for sure, as they did against Miami.
I want it to be Kansas City.
I do too, but am thinking that Pittsburgh's big boys are going to be a little too much, especially with Bell just feeling himself right now.
I mean, Bell's the guy who can, like, he seems like he's standing around for 3 seconds into a play.
It's so weird. You don't see many running backs. Just he trusts his line so much, and he's waiting for that opening. But as soon as he finds it, he just darts right through it. And
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
So I'm going to take Pittsburgh by a field goal, but it'll be a pretty high-scoring game. I think that Kansas City and Pittsburgh are both going to expose the other defenses to a certain extent. It'll be like a high 20s game, maybe even 30s.
It'll be fun. I'm going to take Kansas City in that one. And then on to the last game, Green Bay and Dallas.
This is a tough one to call for me because on the one hand, you can have an easy Aaron Rodgers just explosion continuing on his dominant streak. And on the other side, you have inexperience ruling at quarterback and running back. Just two guys, and Elliott and Prescott, they just haven't been here before. And they say experience trumps most. I mean, you need talent for sure, but you really see a lot of these rookies, they come up short in the big time when you haven't been here before. So there's that, but also the rookie attack could just be for real. Prescott could get it done. Ezekiel Elliott gets his way. That line just dominates Green Bay's lines. But I'm going to ultimately go with Rodgers, man. I'm going to say Packers pull it off somehow by, I'm going to say 7 points in Dallas. It'll be a big time statement.
Yeah, I'm taking Green Bay in this one also, just because I'm thinking about that conference championship of a matchup between Atlanta and Green Bay, and I'm like salivating at that. Like that seems like it could be
would be a good game.
Two of the funnest passing attacks in the league this season.
Yes,
like,
exactly. Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers.
For the chance to go to a Super Bowl, and I'm realizing that's what I want to see the most. I'm going to guess that Dallas, those rookies are going to go through that heartbreak that teams usually go through in all sports when their first trip to the playoffs.
I think offensively speaking, if you want to see the top offenses make it, you want to see Kansas City, you want to see New England, and the two that we just mentioned, Green Bay and Atlanta.
You noticed the four that I chose?
You smart.
Yeah. People will say, well, hey, what about Pittsburgh, Kansas City? How are you going to defend? Kansas City is just the more fun team because it's guys that like you're not even that familiar with, like Tyreek coming out of nowhere, Alex Smith leading at quarterback.
It's the newer matchup, really.
Yeah,
it's what
like new blood and like just all these different.
Exactly,
it's a bunch of different guys getting it done. Too.
I've seen New England, Pittsburgh a bunch of times already. I want to see Kansas City get to that next level. Like the more teams that you have that can break into that conference championship and Super Bowl level, the more healthy the league is, the funner it is to watch.
Switch things up, exactly. Kind of like back when we were talking about the national championship with the same old Alabama and stuff like that. We want to see some new blood in there just to create some excitement. So
see, college football was at its funnest when I actually believed that Cal could make the national championship, and then I realized how the system was set up.
Yeah,
and I was like, never mind.
Pretty much. So that's going to pretty much do it for football talk. All right, now we're transitioning over to some hoops talk. And we're going to start off with a new little segment, Hoops Humor.
Funniest things in basketball for the week. Let's go.
First thing we saw locally, if you're watching many Warrior games, DeMarcus Cousins stepped into the ring against an interesting opponent, a chair.
Unsurprisingly, DeMarcus Cousins was angry. I did not see that coming whatsoever. Decided to take it out on the nearest inanimate object.
I'm just imagining the referee or whoever now. In one corner, you've got DeMarcus Cousins at like 300 pounds, 6'11", and then in the other corner, steel chair or folding chair?
For the heavyweight championship of the world.
He starts off the fight with a low blow. All right, he goes right in between the chair's groin, like right in between the legs, right? And then he just unloads right, left. He feints too. He throws a feint in there so that the chair's just like, oh, he's going that way. No, then comes back the other way. It's like, dude, this is a chair. Come on. Oh, that was great.
Yeah, if you have not seen this already, it's worth a watch. Going to find, you could probably find it off of Google search or something.
I'm legitimate about that feint too. Like he kicks it, and the first punch he throws, like he's just like, and then he feints, and then comes with the left instead. Like, it's like what? It's not a person. He takes it seriously,
man.
It's not a person. There's no reason to feint. That's great.
But yeah, DeMarcus was a little upset because when they were playing the Warriors, it was the first Warrior game they played over at that new arena in Sacramento, the Golden One Center. He got called for a couple of early fouls, which means he had to go to the bench and was not too happy about it. So he took his frustrations out on his chair, first throwing up a kick and then just unloading with a couple of hooks on it. It was pretty entertaining to watch. I think the funniest thing I saw was they showed a couple of people sitting behind, so then the fans sitting close, so their faces just said it all. Kind of going like, what is going on?
Why is he so angry? Well, he loves the game. We'll leave it at that, I guess.
Unsurprisingly, he earned another technical, which is one. I think he's tied for the league lead
With
in
Westbrook?
that area. Probably.
I was gonna say Westbrook has like 11 at this point.
Another story we want to move on to. Also kind of funny to read about. So I didn't even see this, but then recently my eyes were open to it. Joel Embiid, trusting the process all season long, front runner for Rookie of the Year, had a bit of an interesting little encounter with a porn star.
What?
Online, surprisingly enough.
Yeah.
On Instagram. So it was it him that posted the original picture? I think it was him posting a snapshot of him, Ben Simmons, Nerlens Noel, and another Sixer.
Or Miles Meeker, I think the rapper.
A rapper was in it too.
Yeah, and she basically reposted the picture saying a bunch of L's, like bunch of losers, right?
Yeah.
Joel Embiid just comes back with, says the woman with miles of D.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, man.
Yeah. That was a pretty good snapback right there. I appreciate. I am trusting the process on that one. I am definitely behind him 100%. Like, so what's this girl coming after them like that for?
Yeah, she took it well in stride, though, too. She retweeted. She said, lesson learned, don't mess with the Sixers. So she had some fun with it. Like it seemed pretty tongue-in-cheek, not too terrible. I mean, I don't think.
But good on Embiid. I like that
his social media presence is just always on point.
Yeah.
He's one of the funnest guys on social media. So props to him in that situation, responding.
Fun little storyline. Yeah. And then finally, not a huge thing, but I just wanted to take note of poor Brook Lopez getting dunked on all season long. Speaking of the Sixers, he got dunked on again the other day by Robert Covington from the 76ers, and it's just been a rough year for him, man. I mean, there was that absolute massacre that we recently talked about in the last episode with Larry Nance, and then I'm pretty sure his brother dunked on him as well, Robin Lopez, earlier in the season, and it's just been a rough one. It's been a rough one for him.
I mean, luckily he's still putting up points, so he's just like, I'm having a pretty good season stat-wise, but no one remembers that because you're on the Nets and you keep getting destroyed by dunks. It's like, I mean, he's having a pretty good season, but not a single person's going to know it.
Is his dignity going to be intact by the end of the year? That's what we're talking about here.
Will he be defeated as a person by the end?
Can he walk out of the house without putting a paper bag over his head? That's what we're talking about here.
Don't laugh at me.
You got to keep that pride. You got to keep that pride going, indeed. So that's pretty much all we've got so far as far as the hoops humor goes on. But we'll be keeping you in touch with some funny stuff that goes on throughout the rest of the weeks when we got these. We're back into the weekly episodes for sure.
Yeah. And now that we're over this weekend or this holiday sickness.
Yeah.
Basically.
So we want to kick it over to just kind of what's happening around the league in all seriousness
some things
now.
Happening in the league.
Yeah, for sure.
Big things. Cavs making a move.
Yes. Yes, indeed. LeBron James, the general manager of the Cavaliers, he's actually a little bit upset that they didn't go in the direction that he specifically wanted. Boo-hoo. You're not the general manager for a reason, so I'm not going to defend him at all. Griffin, the GM, the actual GM, goes out and gets Kyle Korver, which means you can't complain too much. Kyle Korver can help your team out. He's a little more over the hill at this point. I think he's at least 35 last time I checked. He's kind of getting up there. And he's not quite the same defender. He's more of just a spot shooter. Kind of sound like someone familiar, Ray Allen, Miami Heat.
Yeah, he is basically the J.R. Smith replacement while J.R. Smith's out. They needed three-pointers, and they needed a guy that could shoot better than 40% out there on the wing or out there in the corner whenever LeBron can pass it out to him. So he'll fill that role. Really, I picked him up in fantasy about a week and a half before, so I cannot be more excited that he is now that he's a member of the Cavaliers. Like, that could not have worked out more perfectly. So thank you, Cavs, for making my money league work out for me.
Yeah, the flip side of this.
Terrible analysis.
Hey, man. Hey, whatever helps. The flip side of this is the Cavs give up yet another first-round pick.
Yes.
Was the casualty, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 2019 or 2020 protected, and then it turns into a couple second-round picks, but it's not going to be protected. It's a top 10 protection, and unless the Cavs become terrible within the next 3 years.
And they already don't have their pick next year, right?
The Cavs?
Yeah.
But I don't think they're worried about not having picks at this point.
Well, the more picks you give away, you start to because LeBron's not going to be around forever, and if we're starting to talk about 2019, 2020 territory where we're getting down the road a little bit,
I don't think they're going to be looking post LeBron though. I don't even think they want to think about a post LeBron era.
Yeah. They don't. They really don't.
They'll do everything win now, just to keep him there as long as they possibly can if they have to. Because
for sure, it is nitpicking.
It's not even a basketball thing at a certain point. It's like he brings some hundreds of millions of dollars to towns that he goes to in terms of revenue and profit. He's more than just a basketball player at this point.
As much as they don't want to think about it, I think when LeBron's window finally closes, it's going to be a little ugly for a little while.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Especially if the picks and stuff keep disappearing. But, Cavs fans live in the moment right now. You guys just won the championship, and you guys are on the top of the league, so no worries there. One guy I feel like we haven't been given enough props to this year or recently at all is Jimmy G Buckets over in Chicago. Jimmy Butler getting it done. Oh, he's been getting it done, man. The past 10 games, recently he just had a pretty rough game. Their last game they played where he only had a couple of points and was pretty awful shooting the ball. But before that, before he came back down to earth, he was averaging over the past 10 games 28.5 points per game, a little under 8 assists per game, 5 rebounds per game, filling up the stat sheet left and right, had a 52, I think it was around 50-point outburst, had a couple of other 40-point games. He's just going off, man. This guy is officially stamped the offensive focal point of the Chicago Bulls. It's not Wade. It's obviously not Rondo. He got benched. Yeah. It's Jimmy's team.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at his stat line right now.
One of the best two-way guys in the league.
Wow, doesn't score less than he scored 20 points, but 25, 25, 26, 40, 52, 42. Oh man, that is money. And then 29 minutes for 1 point, but he had the flu and was trying to play through that, so I don't really blame him on that one.
Do you know what's the one downside?
He had 7 assists in that game still.
Do you know what's the one downside to Wade coming in? It's not it's just a statistics thing. Is since Wade came in and is technically the shooting guard, if you're talking about superstar rankings at per position, Butler's now a small forward because he plays most of his positions at small forward. So now he has to sit behind Durant, Leonard, James, Paul George. Well, I think he's ahead of Paul George this year, honestly.
Think so?
Yeah, just as far as filling up the stat sheet goes. But if he was shooting guard still and not Dwayne Wade, Butler might be number one. I think him and Antetokounmpo are the top two there.
Oh my gosh, Antetokounmpo is
he's just insane. Yeah. That's another guy. That's our part B of just the player to watch lately. He's just we don't see guys like this. He's leading his team in every category, every single one.
Yeah, the last month of play, 27.5 points, 9 rebounds, 5.5 assists. This is a point guard. This is a point guard doing this. He plays basically any position, but they're having him at point guard right now, and they want him to be the point guard of the future. Technically,
the majority of his minutes, all the rankings and stuff I read online, everybody's putting him in as a shooting guard right now because that's where more than half of his minutes are coming in. But you're right, where you can't really limit him to a position. He plays just anywhere that the team has a hole.
Yeah, he can ball. He has the ability to ball handle with his length.
He can play from
unreal.
1 to 5.
Yeah,
he can play center.
Exactly.
So it's just nuts. You don't see guys that can literally play anywhere at any time.
It's the new evolution of basketball, which I think is the awesome part. It's Kevin Durant was really the start of it, really, or not really the start of it, but he's the first guy that I can think of.
He's even
really
crazier than Durant, though. Where it's just Durant can't even play the same kind of minutes he can play at the 5 and the 1.
Yeah, agreed.
Antetokounmpo's whole game is it's rare. It's absolutely rare. And so then a team I wanted to focus on, obviously, Warrior fans aren't going to love it too much, but the Grizzlies, Memphis Grizzlies, have now beaten the Warriors twice, both away and at home. And they've also pulled off some pretty big victories against teams like the Rockets. This is a team that's kind of just flown under the radar like they normally do. Still got those same big bashers and bruisers like Tony Allen, Zach Randolph, Mike Conley, the new real rich man over there, Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol, I think, is one of the most underrated centers in the league still.
Oh, absolutely.
And so this team's they're going to be a team to watch out for. Nobody can take them lightly in the playoffs just because they just seem to grit and grind their way to victories most of the time nowadays.
They're moving up those ESPN power rankings. I mean, we talked about it last year. It was what injuries have been what killed them every single season. Like, they have some of their top players go down, and then they're just playing backups. When Marc Gasol stays healthy, they play in the top 4 of the Western Conference, it seems like, when they are healthy.
And they've got a $90 million black hole on their team named Chandler Parsons. You just can't stay on the floor.
Yeah.
I think he's played a total of like 2 games or something this year, and he just keeps on going back on the shelf with another injury. I think that was I mean, they did that to themselves. They shot themselves in the foot by giving that guy. They should have went after someone else. Maybe tried to woo Kent Bazemore away from the Hawks or something like that. Parsons was a huge mistake.
Yeah, it seems that the Grizzlies are playing that Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol duo a lot more often, and it's been working out for them this season than they have in the past. So, and Zach Randolph, timeless wonder. I mean,
I think that was a brilliant move to move him to the bench and have him be more like a big-time 6th man coming off the bench and just adding some low post scoring, because you can't really get away with that old school big-time power forward who starts games nowadays. Nowadays, the starters, you got to have that stretch for. You said the evolution of the NBA with Antetokounmpo and that kind of wave of players. But Randolph still has a purpose. He can still come in the game and punish those backup players, and that's a big reason why Memphis gets leads and keeps them in the games.
Vince Carter.
The ageless Vince Carter, yeah.
Ridiculous.
So you got Carter, Allen, and Randolph, all these really old farts that are just staying in there and winning games for them. So, I mean, good for the Grizzlies. Seen sometimes as a smaller market team, but again, I wouldn't say small market after giving $150 million to Mike Conley this offseason. Yeah. And Gasol's also got the max contract. Yeah, good for the Grizzlies. Any other teams you wanted to just give a little quick shout-out to? I was going to say maybe the Rockets, too, with Harden having an MVP season.
Yeah.
Him and Mike D'Antoni seem like a match made in heaven.
And San Antonio's still good as always so far.
Yeah, that's another team that nobody ever gets. I don't know if it's because they expect Popovich to just always be good with whatever he's got, or if they just seriously don't care. Just the way they play. Maybe it's just too boring. They get it done. Kawhi Leonard's he's bionic. He's the new Tim Duncan. He's even more.
Did you see that clip of him going indubitably? Like, he threw it up on his Facebook page and he started laughing. Like, that's just the type of guy that Kawhi is. I love Kawhi. Like, I feel like the Spurs are very trolly. Just Tim Duncan was a troll. Like, he had a huge personality that he never showed to the crowd. He had Greg Popovich doing whatever he does with the sideline reporters all the time. R.I.P. Craig Sager. And then you now have Kawhi doing what he does. I don't know if you've seen Kawhi and some of the other players, like 3 or 4 years ago, worked with Tim and Eric to do like a really dumb sports video where it was like 70s sounding music. And then at the very end, it goes Spurs, like them just saying Spurs over and over again. They have a weird sense of humor, but I really like that sense of humor. So I've always been a fan of the guys over there.
For sure. So then we want to wrap up the whole NBA segment with saying we're going to tease one more time that NBA segment we got.
It's a 1v1 basically matchup tournament. We're going to be debating who would win in a one-on-one matchup, blacktop-like style. We both pick a player and then we go at it. We would have brought it to you this week or in the next episode following last week's, but we both got sick. I mean, it takes a week. We're actually have to do research for this thing, so we both weren't really feeling up to getting back into it without getting another podcast under our belts first. So we're there now, and next week we'll be bringing it to you, leaving some of the vote up to our audience participation on the Facebook page, and it's going to lead to an overall ranking. We're going to have a whole graphical setup, so hope you guys enjoy that, have some fun in determining who the best 1v1 player is in the NBA.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Like Eric said, we're going to have you involved with this as well, helping us determine all of the rankings and brackets and whatnot. And it's going to be the ultimate recess time. Let's go out to the blacktop and settle things.
We're going to give you our best arguments. We got to convince you that our player is the best.
Got to do our best Stephen A. and
Makes me just giggle.
and Skip impression.
Exactly.
We're not going to quite be as toxic as those guys.
Where it's going to devolve into just us going, and then my guy's going to drive right, go for a layup, and then you're going to yell over me and get swatted. Like that's what it's going to devolve into, but it's going to be fun. So let's get to that point.
All right, and then we're going to wrap up all of our basketball talk today with getting into our usual Warriors talk. We're still thinking about a segment name as we speak to officially give it a name and give it an official kind of sounding, a cool sounding.
Name some of our segments instead of just going, and now we're going to talk. So, yeah.
So we're going to kick off this, whatever it's called, with talking about some of the problems that have been going on with the Dubs lately. So, obviously, a little bit of this is nitpicking, of course. Still have the best record in the league. A lot of teams wish they could be the Warriors right now. Let's just be honest. 4 All-Stars in the starting lineup, for sure. Mm-hmm. But if we are going to nitpick and are going to get into some of these problems, and I don't think it's going to be nitpicking when it's playoff time, because they're going to turn into real problems, because we've been exposed by some good teams this year, as evidenced by, I think it's like an 0-6 record we have against the Cavs, Spurs, Rockets, Grizzlies, just all the teams that are good, essentially. So the first thing I want to talk about is the interior. Zaza Pachulia, as funny as it is that he's up there in the All-Star voting for the fan vote right now, Republic of Georgia represent, that's a big problem right now. It's a real big problem.
Yeah, I mean, you have guys in the home crowd booing him basically at certain points. Like, it's looking ugly out there. Don't know what the issues are really for him. It's hard for me to diagnose what his problems have been. It's slowly gotten better as the season's gone on. I'll give it that. Like, the progress, I think, has gotten better as he's fitting in with the roster. But of the guys who are new to this team, I think he's had the hardest time fitting in.
Yeah.
Even though he's going to be an all-star. Not really. I don't think that's going to happen. But, yeah, I can't say it'll come around because we're, 3 or 4 months into this now, and it hasn't looked exactly how we wanted it to look, but they're going to need, I mean, like you were saying, 0-6 against teams that they haven't, and they've lost some big leads in fourth quarters against those two, which is really worrying. They haven't been able to shut it down defensively in the fourth quarter, so it's going to need to pick up.
They severely missed that Bogut interior presence for sure, but I will say they still won that decision by dumping Bogut and Ezeli and all those guys just because Ezeli hasn't touched the floor this year. Bogut's been injury prone all year long. Spates doesn't play any defense. I still think in the long term it was a great move to bring in Durant for sure. You're really noticing it, and I'm going to tell you why it's not going to turn around for Zaza. And here's the thing. A lot of these general NBA fans and people who are so-so and don't pay as much attention to the game, they're going to see the counting stats and say that Zaza's actually scoring double digits a few times these games. Here's why that doesn't matter. He's playing with the best dang team in the league, pretty much, or arguably the best team. I mean, of course, the Cavaliers have beat them, and they're the champs and everything, but pretty much the Warriors are one of the elite teams in the league. If you stick Zaza on a team like that, he's going to get just like some crazy open looks and some pretty good opportunities. But if you put him on like the Sixers or Suns, he's going to suck. Because here's why. He's like 6'10", soft as can be, doesn't do a good job of boxing people out underneath, and he doesn't jump at all. He has no jumping ability. He's not providing much. I think JaVale McGee at least provides some athleticism underneath the hoop right now, and at least you can throw up some lobs to him, and he's a little inconsistent on defense, but he's just a better guy. Maybe he can give you a few more block shots. But I'm not in love with Zaza underneath the hoop. I think playoff time, his minutes need to decrease quite a bit. Maybe even he needs to get moved to the bench.
I don't really have an argument against that.
I was really hoping that Damian Jones would progress a lot quicker than he has, but he's still needing some time to develop from that injury and D-League seasoning and whatnot. Putting a lot of burden on a guy who was drafted like 30th overall. We need him.
I still think there's gonna be room for improvement from Pachulia. I'll take the opposite take on that. I think that his off-ball play, screens he delivers for some guys is pretty good. and some of the passes he makes are pretty good. Defensively, though.
But it's only chemistry, because, yeah, he can improve getting along and playing with the other guys more. I'll agree with you there, but as far as talent goes, he's already 30, so that ship has sailed. I think he's not improving his game much at all at this point.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you can just learn how to hop higher or box people out more. I mean, he just needs to put muscle on. It's a little late for that right now. I see guys can just have their way against him down in the post. And when you've got Durant and Green and these guys out rebounding him by quite a bit. I'm looking at Zaza's rebounding numbers. That's his only job really right now, is just to get rebounds. And he's getting constant numbers of like 4 rebounds a game or something. And that's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. There's no way of looking at that a different way. Another thing I want to move on to, they're not attacking the basket as much as they should be. They need to get to the foul line more, especially when you've got Clay, Steph, and Durant as 3 of the best dang free throw shooters in the league. You need to attack the free throw line, or get to the free throw line by attacking.
Yeah, they do, but this has been an issue for a couple of years now where they've stopped going to the line. And that started last year where they really weren't going to the line. And on top of that, they started shooting like 67% or so for as a team. Like, it was bad from some of their free throw shooters. They do, but I don't know if that's anywhere in their game plan style to really try and get down low and do that, because the more that they have Curry drive, they're worried about him possibly getting hurt. The other guys, you don't really worry about that as much. And I think Clay and Durant, you do see them get to the rim, but they need to run that pick and roll with Draymond more, because I think that gets them that is one of their primary plays for attacking the basket, and they haven't been doing that as much this season as they have. They've started doing it more recently, and you've seen it work for them, and that's probably their best way to get to the basket. So I think they do that more. Honestly, I think that they're going through the season not doing some of their best stuff. Like, they're some of their best because you haven't seen that Draymond Curry screen as much, and we know how OP that move is. So yeah, I think that will get better as the season goes on. I think they might be just playing a little safe now, because you don't want to, after last year with the way that injuries kind of cost them at the end, they might be playing a little overcautious, which is what I want them to do. Yeah.
The one thing I'll say about why bring this up in the first place is because, I mean, I'll use a perfect example here, Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, the reason why he's made himself into such a dangerous offensive tool is because of how often he can attack the rim and now stop on a dime and turn around and make that jump shot. See, with guys like Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant, these guys have become so prone to just shooting jump shot after jump shot that guys aren't even honoring them attacking. That's why sometimes Kevin will catch him off guard and go dunk it, but they need to drive more so then they can get the guys laxed off of them a little bit and get those jump shots more open. You said it too, like Klay and Durant don't have the excuse of Curry being smaller than everybody else. They can go down there and body up with people and go get fouled and go get to the line and get some and one opportunities. And with Klay, the situation I'm seeing a lot of is he takes the ball down in the post, he's got a defender right on him, and he knows he can make that quick turnaround jump shot over the defender. Just because you can make it doesn't mean you should take it, though. Like, you kind of get me there? Like, just because you know you can make that shot, you could still try to take it down to the hoop and try to get fouled or just try to make an acrobatic finish. Because the closer you get to the hoop, just the higher percentage is going to go in.
Because when they start to struggle is when they start to settle for those shots, I feel like. When they're not passing it around and finding that fourth or fifth. That fifth pass, I think, is really, like, in that offense what opens it up for the guy. You did bring up Kyrie Irving about how his ability to get to the rim. I will say this, Kyrie Irving has had injury issues his entire career.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit more well-built than Steph Curry. And I'm kind of focusing on Steph Curry here because he's the guy who I think they're most worrisome about getting to the net and about getting knocked around.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you see that Kyrie Irving is like, I remember a couple of years ago, they showed a graphic of just all of his injuries on his body. There was an arrow pointing to every single body part, basically, with an injury. So I think that's what the Warriors front office and management is worried about, just keeping those guys healthy for the season. I think that's what this whole season is about, just keeping them healthy. 82 games in, they don't care about how many games they win. They know they're going to be in the playoffs. Like that's
a good point.
It's all about keeping these guys rested enough.
Yeah, Klay Thompson has already been announced. Like, we're recording this on Tuesday. Klay Thompson's going to rest tonight against the Heat. He's not playing.
Yeah,
and it's
that's
just
smart.
There's no reason. So
and I want to see more of that more often. We haven't seen that yet, where they really have rested one guy maybe of the 4. per night. So I hope to see that a lot more.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
Yeah.
The one last thing I wanted to say, in a certain situation where you've got the clock winding down and no plays are really, for instance, Kevin Durant's at the top of the key, and they're trying to run a play. It's not really working out. The play clock's winding down. You got to take the James Harden Houston Rockets approach then and just run in there, and you're most likely going to get whacked. There's not too many bigger guys than him that could injure him or damage him too much. He's a little frail. He's not the most meaty guy in the world.
We're talking about Durant here? Durant?
Yeah, because, James Harden will just start to run towards the rim, flail his hands in the air, and then he'll get called. He'll go to the foul line.
James Harden's very good at keeping his body calm and composed while going to the rim, anticipating where the contact's going to from, and then jerking to get that foul. Not saying that it's a flop or anything, but, showing that compared to a Jeremy Lin who just throws himself around. But I say that because Kevin Durant, that's why he doesn't get any calls. Kevin Durant, his body type, he's so lengthy, he knows that. He falls into that trap of just, you were saying how Clay knows he can take that shot.
Yeah.
He knows he can take that shot over, guys, so he settles for it.
I'm seeing him at the top of the key. He knows he can take that three, and then he misses it a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're settling. That's the traps. That's the stuff they need to work through, which is why I really liked when they lost that game, and you remember Draymond was saying we needed to lose that game.
Yeah.
That's the stuff they need to lose, and that's the way they need to respond to those losses. Stronger as a team, and hopefully not knowing what to do, but just as the season goes on, just those losses turn into wins.
Yeah. All right. So Cavs, they got Korver. Are there any moves that the Warriors should consider making? Yeah, there's the whole chemistry issue, and then working in a new guy late into the season. But I'd say if there's a way they can find a guy who might improve the team, do you think they should go for it?
Just do it!
I don't know if there's a move to make.
Anybody who might be someone you can replace Zaza with. If there's some sort of center who's not a big cost guy who you can bring in on the cheap and not have to give up a whole lot, I would have to seriously consider it.
The Warriors would too.
It's the same kind of argument when we talked about the Cavaliers with the whole in the future kind of thing. You don't want to worry about that right now because right now you've got Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry on one-year deals, essentially.
Yeah.
Assuming we can re-sign both of them, that's the plan right now, and it should work out that way. But you have to treat it like it is. They're both on one-year deals.
Just let Bogut get cut. Bogut, get yourself waived this season and then come back to the Warriors.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's really anyone that I want to see moved because even the guys who might have been struggling, people have been perceived as struggling this year, like a Sean Livingston. I still think he's going to be a valuable player.
No, I'm not. I don't want to subtract him. I don't want to subtract him or an Iguodala or somebody like that. I'm not saying that. I'm thinking more of like draft picks, or if you want to give up on Jones or
like
McCaw or one of those guys.
Yeah, I can see McCaw maybe
as trade bait, especially since we have Clark and other depth back there.
Like Ian Clark has really shown to be a really good player, so I think that makes McCaw somewhat expendable. Even McCaw's the younger player.
Yeah.
Damian Jones, but the thing is, with both those guys, first, I want to see Damian Jones' first season because he's still going in and out of the D-League first. He hasn't developed. Give him a year or two. I don't want to see Damian Jones get moved yet, but McCaw...
I feel like the Warriors, though, also might be grooming McCaw to become the next Iguodala.
Yeah, no, they are. I think they are, too, which is why still like a little on the fence about moving anyone this season.
Because the amount of cap room they're going to have next year, assuming they re-sign and keep the core four, they're going to have like next to nothing. Yeah. And Zaza's will be gone. JaVale's up. Like they have nobody at center. Mm-hmm. Everybody that they've put at center this year, except for the small ball Draymond, David West, Zaza Pachulia, and JaVale McGee, all of them contract years. All of them are gone. So you're back to square one in the offseason. Anyway.
Andrew Bogut.
Andrew Bogut, please cut him, Dallas. I don't know. We could work out something
we'll figure it out.
Off the grid.
$850,000.
So the upcoming homestand to wrap up this Warriors talk, we've got, of course, Miami. It's going to be tonight when we're recording this. Detroit, Cleveland, and OKC. This is all the same homestand over the next week or so. Some pretty big-time matchups here. Obviously, you've got Miami's, they're kind of more in rebuild mode or reload mode, I guess. Detroit has been kind of off. They've kind of struggled with Reggie Jackson coming back into the mix so far. OKC, triple-double machine, and Russell Westbrook. And then, of course, MLK Day rematch, Cavs-Warriors.
I mean, ramping up in terms of competition, really. You're starting with the worst in Miami, go to Detroit. I'd say they're worse than Oklahoma City. I mean, it's really a step up. Just all the way up into that MLK game, and that's kind of cool. I like how they did that big one against Cleveland. That's the one that's going to matter. The main thing I want to see is how they respond in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's huge. The one thing that worries me, and this is kind of like that weird, you don't know how certain players react to certain rest, but the Warriors have several off days before the Cavaliers game. And sometimes that's detrimental to not have a game, like at least like on that off and on day, like you play, day off, and then play. I think they have like 2 or maybe even 3 days off before that Cavs
I
game.
worry more about that in the playoffs than I do in the regular season, though, because regular season you're dealing with all the fatigue and all of that.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big issue. I think that when it comes to rest, any rest in a regular season is very just well looked upon. Just we need it. But I could be wrong about that. That's just how I would think they'd go about it.
And we'll see how that shapes up. It's going to be a very key week, and we're going to be anxious to see how the Warriors come out of it for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, you know what time it is.
Shark Talk, the Shark 1/12 Power Hour. I kind of like that. I like
playing
that.
around with some stuff on that, too.
I like that one. Got a couple weeks to recap or so. It's been roller coaster season for them that continues. 11 days ago, their backup rookie goaltender, Aaron Dell, got his first career shutout as they beat the Philadelphia Flyers 2-0. Yeah, good job on him. He's looked really good. Started off the season, his biggest issue for me was when pucks would get down low on him, he'd get shaky. The closer it got to him, it would seem like the less likely he was to make a save. But those issues have gone away for the most part. Positioning was looking good. But then the Sharks went on to lose 3 games, 3 straight, including 2 games against the Los Angeles Kings in a home and home. Lost them both. Let's see, Saturday night they were at home. They lost on the road, lost in regulation, and then at home they lost in overtime. And it kept going too. They lost another game. They were up 4-2, I'm pretty sure, against the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild score 3 goals in the third to beat the San Jose Sharks, and it did not look good. The only good thing that comes from that is the Sharks scored 4 goals because the Sharks have not been scoring goals a lot recently whatsoever. It's been defensively they look fine, just goal scoring it's not there for them. And then followed up 3 days ago, they beat the Red Wings 6-3. Most goals, I think the first time they've gone past 5 goals in a game this season. So scoring hasn't been there, but they're still at the top of the division, so there's not much you can say. I mean, they've got a couple games in hand. It's only halfway through the season at this point, so top of the division, not much else to say. Looking good.
So who's your X factor moving forward? Who's the guy that you need to see step up?
Oh, let's see.
Looks like Burns has been the man now.
I think it's got to be most of their defensive core, actually, because you actually had an injury to Marc-Edouard Vlasic. He got hit in the face with a puck. Bad bruising. Wow. Yeah, didn't look good whatsoever. It's like and this is a kind of funny note, not a really funny note, but this is I think the 3rd or 4th time that a puck's gone up high and almost hit him in the face. But the other 3 times though, it's literally hit his shield. So this one, so he's been saved 3 times or so.
Finally, luck ran out though.
Yeah, he finally got hit. And throughout Vlasic's career, whenever he goes out, there's a dramatic drop-off in the Sharks' defensive ability. He is by far their best defensive player. Other than that, all-star players got announced for the San Jose Sharks. Brent Burns, Joe Pavelski, and Martin Jones, all 3 got announced.
Nice.
Yes, and San Jose Sharks coach Peter DeBauer will be coaching the Pacific Division team as well. So you got 4 Sharks, technically, who are going to be representing us in the All-Star game. So good for those guys. Other than that, let's see, they got a game tonight against the Oilers. Actually, that's going to start about 20 minutes from now. So I'm going to go and watch that. And and they got another game facing the Flames. Ooh, a Canadian back-to-back coming up these next couple of nights. So big 2 matchups against
Ryan
the Oilers.
Reynolds spectacular. Yeah.
They're going up against Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames the next couple of days. So they should come out on both of those games and be looking pretty good in the in the Pacific Division. But you never know with these San Jose Sharks. They lose the games they should win, and they win the games they should lose. So we shall see.
Right on, man.
That's Sharks talk. I don't know if I got to 5 minutes or not, but
Well, before we end the show, I did want to give a shout out to one of the guys I graduated with from Castro Valley High has just been announced as the first professional athlete of our class. He's now a San Jose Earthquake, Nick Lima.
Ooh, congratulations.
I know we don't talk a whole lot of soccer on this show, but that's a pretty damn huge accomplishment, man.
Insert the applause noise.
Castro Valley High School, class of 2013, man. Nick Lima's also always been, like, hands down the best athlete in our class. It all paid off, man. He was a kick-ass player over at Cal Berkeley the past couple of years.
Cal Bears,
and now he's a homegrown player over at the San Jose Earthquakes.
Yeah, that's good. San Jose Earthquakes signing that homegrown player contract. It's always fun to see them bring in local guys. That's awesome. That is awesome.
So that is going to pretty much do it for today's show. It was a fun one.
Heck yes, it was. Social media, I'm on Twitter at eharmony24. I love that Twitter name so much more than what it used to be.
Yep. Getting a lot of single ladies coming at you with that one.
Yeah, I need some dating advice. I'm just like, I got you on dating advice.
I'm at Dalton Wicks on Twitter as well. Facebook, you can hit us up.
Dub and Harmon, yes. Instagram, iTunes, Spreaker, YouTube, Dub and Harmon Show, Dub and Harmon Podcast. I think that's just about it. Whether you're listening to this during the day, whether it's, noon, whether it's night, whether it's a weekday, whether it's a weekend, I hope you're having a good time.
Stay classy.